different services to see if we are actually live. Are we live? Are we live in this world? Well, looks like we are. Okay, yes, it looks like we are. Very good. Very, very good. Well, I hope a few of you will be watching this eventually. I am starting late, but, well, I needed the extra hour of sleep. It really helped me. Ah. And for those of you new around here, of course, I'm Gamer1745. I don't know anybody new showing up. I have come on some profound thoughts and still working my way through them regarding World War I. Something that I do not really see, and no, I haven't even read most of the books, but really do not see in contemporary thought what the major issues come about because of World War One. I mean, yes, we see a lot of in World War II, particularly coming out of World War One, communism and other things getting spread in the Soviet Union, but there are even more, and more profound, I believe, than even that. Okay, we want to just to explain what I'm thinking here. This unit is Paul. Well, yeah, I just started, so I started late, as per the schedule, but so glad you got here. You got here just very much at the start. Okay, so he has 80% readiness and 70% morale, doing pretty good for only a 6-strength unit, where he has 114% and 107% morale, readiness and morale. What we're going to do is do the old switcheroo, which sort of kind of means they haven't moved, but they have. But what we're going to do now is max out his. It did take down 3 action points instead of just 1 to do that, but we were able to reinforce the front line here. Now, okay, we're going to move our cavalry unit up here. We're going to move our artillery piece up here. We're going to trench these guys this angle. He needs to come forward. Okay. 8 shells next turn. 10 shells. I'm going to over reinforce him. Western society is sick now from multiple causes. A lot of people would like to throw a casual, but to them maybe meaningful reason for it. People's lost their faith in God or something like that. And I'm not saying people haven't. I'm not saying God isn't important in people's lives or something like that. But that just sort of trivializes the problem and doesn't posit any real solution. Oh, well, if everyone just believed in God, well, there's got to be a reason. And um, and I'll get to Paul's comment here in a moment. Um, there's got to be a reason people have lost their faith in God. There was a time, we can look at different times in the Middle Ages or something, in which belief in God was really strong. So is it God somehow lacking? Or maybe it's, if you will, God's messengers. The church has not been addressing people's concerns in a way that is meaningful to the people, if you understand what I'm saying. So that is maybe where and my the I always have looked at World War One as, setting up for World War Two, and I thought World War Two was the big thing. It's really World War One. And I understood that people lost their faith in the leadership because the leaders could not work their way out of it. But also now I understand people lost their faith in all institutions. The post office, I'm not trying to, or the, any sort of human institution, people lost their faith in it because of this war. And the deeper you were in the war, the more faith you lost in the institutions. America is barely in it, so it barely loses any of its faith. That's why America has a much higher religious attendance, belief in systems, I believe, than Europe. Because if we look at, and we often put this to modernism, if you will, or the modern age that people have fallen away. And I am not someone here, if you think I'm trying to push a viewpoint about God or religion. I'm just examining the situation. So don't either think I'm on your side or, oh God, he's pushing his beliefs on us. No, I am just trying to understand the human condition, if you will, and what's going on. Because we can look at, yes, some of the founders of America are religious nutters, okay? And those are the Puritans, the Pilgrims, those guys shown up in Boston area. Yeah, they're religious nutters, in my opinion. Oh my God, I'm one of them. Well, fine, you're a religious nutter then. But they were, excuse me, very extreme in their religious beliefs. Where I would say, and so yeah, that does in part. Oh, and also, you have the Quakers in Pennsylvania and other places, um, religious refugees. But you do have Europe as being rather religious during this time period. Hell, they have the 30 Years' War over religion, and whatnot. So, around the founding of America. the northern European colonies in America. So I would not go, oh, America is so much more inherently so much more religious than Europe. It is a bit in certain areas, but I would not go that way as a general rule. But it is today, and I think that is because the institutions in Europe, the churches as being one of them, and I know there's Protestant, Catholic, and whatever, but they did not address the people's needs or concerns in a way that was relevant to the people at the time. And so that is just one facet of the great change in Western society based on World War One. And what does Paul have? I've been reading a lot of the 1870 war between Prussia and France that led to a German unification. You can see how that war led to make the decisions they did in the Great War. Yes, you're very right, Paul. History is a continuum. And another thing that I've recently, as in the last couple of years, really sort of understood how I see history. Paul here puts out, 1870, and I even before I got to Prussia and France, I knew roughly what he was talking about. But I am not good with dates or names or whatever. I define the world as math and not math. Math is formulas, like spelling, actual math, hard data facts that you need to memorize, not just dates, but unit sizes, all anything that a computer can do easily, calculation type stuff, storing type stuff. I know we have AI now, but AI is still a delusional infant, doesn't know reality from storytelling yet. But traditional, that kind of stuff, and then everything else is not math. Concepts, ideas, flow of stuff. That I am good with. I am not good with math. But the way I see history is like a tapestry. But the tapestry isn't just one layer, like the surface layer. It's both deep and wide. Wide as in covering the whole planet. Deep as in going back into the past as far as we can, anywhere else. And you can zoom out like this. You can zoom out, or you can zoom in. But there's also threads, and the threads run through this tapestry, not always straight, like back behind, this counter to the counter before that. It was as let's just say this counter represents the evolution of heavy artillery, and it's not just that counter, but it can connect to this up here. It can connect to events in other locations, places, ideas. So it's all woven together. And so if you start looking in at the threads, maybe literal threads of history, meaning like uniforms and how uniforms change, you have like we see here with this general, the pickle hoob. Now it's a really bright black object with probably gilt, actual gold leaf, but for the general, or brass for the infantryman. That's sort of a hard, what we might think of as a hard hat for construction. Sort of kind of protect your head. The spike up on top is hollow. That's just sort of to deflect the sword or a blow coming down on it instead of hitting square on top. But keep it all lightweight. The pickle hoob to the stall helm, pretty heavy, of World War One, to the lighter stall helm of World War Two. So we can look at that, or other, in the German army, I hope I'm getting this correct. Again, these where we get into detailed facts. Now, when I produce a scripted or at least outlined video, and I have a few planned that I want to do someday, just in the midst of many things, I always, look up hard facts and details. But in the German army, the infantry had piping, or like on their shoulder boards, on wherever they put piping on their uniform, the edging, trimming, if you will. But it's called piping. Infantry is white. Artillery is red. Well, a lot of the primary colors were already taken up by the late 1930s. And what are we going to do for panzers? Well, let's make them pink. So they came up with pink piping. The cavalry, traditionally in most armies, including the Germans, was yellow. And there is yellow continuing. And I don't know if they did an alternate, like a yellow/gold or whatever. But if they did sort of an orange, no. But I think they did continue. Again, I don't know. I don't remember all that stuff. Yellow for reconnaissance, like whether armored or otherwise motorized reconnaissance units. I think continue to use the yellow tradition. So the threads can literally be thread, but it's just all the connectivity. And Paul is absolutely right. Nothing in here, and I'm hyper focusing, yes, on World War I, in this idea of the Great Change, but there's definitely precursors to it and going on that are setting the stage. And I was having I think it was with Dino. I was having a talk about no, I think it was maybe with Niagara. And I'm saying Niagara, I'm saying it more or less right, but emphasizing it, which is just comes out of Latin. No, like aggravation. No, but the way it's spelled makes you sort of think of some other word, not a pleasant word. But I think it was with Niagara. We were talking about Wilhelm II and how he greatly caused World War One. Now, yes, we don't have the map here. I 100% believe the main cause, the overwhelming cause of World War One was the Serbian government sponsoring the assassination of. Okay, this is just a detachment. I got to remember that. That's not a full-fledged unit. Okay. So it's assassinating, Franz Ferdinand and his wife and whatnot, starts World War One. But maybe Paul can figure out what big thing, and I don't mean going with the Schlieffen plan. That's too simplistic. Going through Belgium that causes this not to just be a war, but causes making it into a World War One. What big thing does Wilhelm II do that makes World War One a big issue? Okay, we have 6 rounds here. We have 6 rounds. No, we have 10 rounds here. So let's fire 2. We'll get 2 next turn. Added to this. I'll give Paul or anybody else who's watching. There's a few people out there. That's probably good enough. So I'm going to bomb this city. Thanks. I thought maybe. Hello, Mirror Man. Good to have you here. I don't know if you caught my posited question over there on Twitch. Oh, good. Damage those tanks considerably. You can fire at them. Oh, -1. Good. No, we're continuing this campaign, but from last week and beyond. What one big thing did Wilhelm II do that caused World War I, or the war that was breaking out over the Serbian assassination of Franz Ferdinand, to move from what might be a regional war into turning it into a world? Okay, and Paul's response is, I consider World War I the gentrification of the world. Most countries were agrarian before the war. After the war, cities became centers of society. I don't know how much the war itself caused that. That is definitely industrialization is happening. I'll get to that. And hey, Beam Slam. Okay, Mirror Man's not sure. Okay, the one big thing, I mean, again, the history's a tapestry with many threads running through it and across it and around it and whatever, and they link up in many strange ways. But the big thing Wilhelm was doing that pushed this into a world war was insisting that Germany have a grand fleet, a fleet that could challenge the British fleet, right? So traditionally, and particularly Protestant Germany, and again, even more particularly Hanover, which actually had been having the same ruler as Britain until Queen Victoria. You got to remember that. Once you get George the First of England in, what was that? I think, 1714. Again, trying to pull dates out. The leader, the Elector of Hanover, is also the King of England. So up until Victoria, which, what is that, 1730s, 1740s, you have the same ruler in Britain as you do at Hanover, though they're entirely different governments, entirely different military establishments, but the Hanoverian army does adopt red coats like the English do at some point during that period. And the other, of course, big ally in Germany, natural ally of Britain, is Prussia. So the Germans have had a natural ally in England, because England's strategic, diplomatic, and military goal is to not have a united Europe. So whenever you're seeing somebody that's looking like they're uniting Europe, the Habsburgs, let's say, they're generally opposing it. Well, after the Napoleonic Wars, Britain does not like revolutionary France, and so they are often allying with a recently installed, or often installed by the English, Louis the something of France later on. And so they do have this somewhat French alliance, but it's really the idea that Germany is now united. Yeah, they've pushed out, that again, the Habsburgs, the Austrian part of Germany, but it's united, so it's becoming a great power and not just, a regional power. And it's now building a fleet that is specifically designed, whether there is a political, a political conflict, but you don't know if there's going to be like a revolution in Germany somewhere, like there have been in France, and now that Germany is politically hostile to Britain for some reason, that they would inherit the main thing that is British defense is its fleet. Um, oh, I'm blanking on the name, but during the latter part of the Napoleonic Wars, um, the First Lord of the Admiralty is at one of the balls in London and is gets a note about something about the possible the French fleet are out or whatever, and one of the guests asks, and I believe this is a true story, and I'm butchering the details, but is asked, how is the French fleet going to, or how is the French going to invade Britain? Um, and his response is, and I'm going to get this part correctly, I don't know how the French will invade, but I know it won't be by sea. Now, this is in the Napoleonic era. So, in his mind, they could dig a tunnel under the channel, or they could invade by a bunch of these newfangled balloons, but they weren't coming to Britain via the sea. So, oh, Elizabeth. So, the whole idea, the whole core of British strategic thinking in its national defense, yes, and it can also be used aggressively too, not suggesting it can't, but its aggressive use, aggressive ability is the sea. So you're building an instrument that takes years to build, and especially if it's going to be well trained and developed, a generation to build. You're building the thing that Britain most fears, whatever your alliances are, and of course, King George is a cousin, first cousin, meaning they have the same grandmother, Victoria, of Wilhelm II and Nicholas II. So George, Willie, and Nicky are all first cousins. So they, in that way, should sort of have a fairly good relationship. But of course, the Germans and the Russians are worried about each other as well. However much the individual leaders may like each other and are willing to deal with each other, they do have strategic interests. So that fleet, that existence of that fleet, pushes Britain into alliance with France, which stays, well, mostly through the Cold War. Okay, let's again check up on chat here. How are you going to get them to stay on the farm after they've seen Perry? Yes, that's definitely an issue. And I can talk more about cities in a bit. The British royal family were the House of Hanover until they changed the House of Windsor because of World War One. Absolutely, but they were the House of Hanover, starting with George, and then with Queen Victoria's marriage, they were the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, because that was the German principality that her husband was from. But yes, you do have it essentially right there. I've always wondered why, given they were cousins, the peace treaty was so incredibly harsh. Because of France, Elizabeth. Because of France. What is it? Deladier, whatever. And the general French sentiment, they want revenge on the Germans, and they're getting it through the the peace treaty. It's clearly that. I don't know that Britain wants. So I don't know. I don't right offhand know what the British leadership. It's not always, the individual does matter. The individual is important, very much so. But it's also, the people around the government at the higher levels, both in the government as well as, um, leadership elements in society. Um, the British aren't, I don't think, are that harsh on the Germans. Uh, so yeah, I see that entirely a French thing that's driving it. And Wilson comes in and makes it even worse with his 14 points that basically gives on all of them, but that he is, one of them is looking for, local determination as to what nation you're going to belong to, whether it's the nation of, let me find a name I can pronounce here easy, Hui, meaning a city state, like, well, here's a real world example. Danzig becomes a city state, the free city of Danzig. Or whether it's, part of Czechoslovakia or part of Germany. It was meant, and he's pushing this as opposed to real world strategic goals. There's a historic picture of 9 kings, or the equivalent, together in 1910, and you can see the family resemblance of the British, German, and Russian monarchs. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, those 3, they look very similar, and they are very much first cousins of the same family. Well, best to do that link if you have it, and I don't know if it's in the description of this or on for sure on the War Thunder streams, into the Discord server. That's probably the best place to put links for people to see, like photos and other such things, so that will be there. Okay, so now here we have a British detachment here. Now we also have here an artillery piece with 4 rounds or 4 volleys. He's moved and he's at 8. We have, what is this, Portuguese, I believe. Yeah, Portuguese. Okay. Let's put 2 shells into this detachment outside of Arras. Now, I'm not planning on, hurt fairly bad, and occupying that hex. I just want to eliminate the unit and make them a little worried about that spot. That northern front doesn't seem to have moved much since the open. No, it has not. Yes, I know what you're talking about. And it's a couple of reasons. And I am planning, I'm not sure. This goes to like November or something, so we're well into this, but we're not near the end. But what it has been doing is focusing the British up here. We can see some British have come down here. We can see the Americans are down here supporting the French, and where we have great big openings in the line, and we're working our way this way. And for those new watching this, haven't watched all of the series beforehand, shame on you, of course. But part of the theory and plot that I'm playing this is if I was the German commander in World War I, whether you want to call it Hindenburg or Ludendorff, at this point, how would I be conducting the war? I would be conducting the war and I'm taking the basic premise of an offensive, because we could just continue a defensive, but we're trying to do an offensive before these guys, the Americans, get into Europe big time for the 1919 offensive that was being planned that didn't happen. Oh, Paul's back. Good. So, how would I conduct this? Well, and we don't have, other than which we have been doing some research here, which is improving, like we have, some of it is maxed out, like tank development, infantry weapons, getting things out there like the MP-18. And the Germans did improve tactics. So, Evil Bot, yeah, get him mods. Yeah, unfortunately, my main mod, Arno, has had a knee injury, and he's back home, but I know he's not doing well, so I don't know that he's up to, and not that I would be unwilling to get some other mods, but Arno's the main one. He hasn't been on the live streams recently. I think because of the knee injury, I think he's in bed, and I don't think he has an easy way set up to be on his computer while in bed, though he does sometimes connect over his phone, and I don't know that he feels like listening or watching on his phone right now, so don't really have that to kill the bot. Now, again, if you want to go over to my Discord and maybe join there, and maybe we could add a mod or two, because I do have a few, but can always use more. Oh yeah, back to where I was. So we don't really have and the Germans were developing new tactics, and this is goes back to why people lose faith in the institutions. Is, I could say it's overdone, but it really isn't. We really see both the French and the British sticking with the same tactics when really in the offense. Once Germany's, and this is, I know, is simplified, and although I'm very much looking at World War I as a big cause and change in society, I'm really not the best expert on the details of the war. Now, I've read Infantry Attacks at least 3 times, and that's Rommel's book on it. So I do have an idea. But basically, there's the German offensive, the Schlieffen Plan. And once that sort of stalls out, Germany basically goes on the defensive in Northwest Europe. And then the French and the British, but very heavily focused on the French, go for heroic efforts to throw the Germans back. So they're the ones that go on the offensive. And they keep, basically, seemingly, at least from my perspective, doing the same thing over and over, and only really trying to, if you will, perfect the same thing, the same traditional tactics. And yes, they're trying to perfect, the coordination of the artillery with the infantry attack, and also doing more so. The last time it didn't work. Well, let's do the same thing again, but have, instead of 24 hours of bombardment, let's have 7 days of bombardment. And instead of trying to attack with 2-to-1 odds that we think the enemy has, or whatever, let's attack with 5-to-1 odds. And so they're just doing basically the same thing, just more so. Now, as the war is progressing, even the British and whatnot are learning new tactics. So, yes, it isn't entirely and I will get to the chat in a moment, it isn't entirely a disregard for the realities on the front lines. But, and definitely and I see this from mostly, again, because I read English, so I get English sources most. with the English coming up with the idea of integrating tank tactics into the mix. But so we're not having that, but we are. But I am so. What I'm trying to do is not just pound the enemy where I can pound them, and then use the system of reinforcing to get into the meat grinder of it. I'm trying to use smart operational or strategic tactics with lots of firepower, artillery primarily, and tanks where we have them, to push on the enemy effectively. And so that is sort of my same as repeating in Ukraine. Well, we are seeing a revolution in warfare with the Ukraine being slammed. And that really is drone warfare. Yeah, I know a lot of insurgents have been using drones in places like Iraq against the Americans, but really using drones in such a deep way here. Now let's go back and check the chat. I do. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Better stagnant than going backwards. Absolutely. But again, what I'm trying to do is when I attack, eliminate a division or two from the front line without losing a single of my divisions. Yeah, I'll have to purchase reinforcements, but to the units, but I won't have new units that have to be rebuilt. So we're doing that. It's difficult to move units along the coast, particularly behind where Belgium is, because of the marshes. You have the marshes, one, and two, you don't have stacking in this game. This is better than the strategic, grand strategy, in my opinion, because the stacking is a problem in that. Now, what I would do, and the stacking that some people have mentioned, and I don't know if it was the devs or somebody else, and talking about dealing with, stacks, multiple units in one stack. That isn't a real issue because we can look at Warplan or other games that can deal with stacks. I agree with the basic principle. You don't want a doom stack of 4 or 5 divisions just marching around. And I could even see an idea that you do not want to have combat in any hex that has a stack, meaning more than one unit in it. But this division isn't taking up so much space that I couldn't import 2 more divisions to be, to be there as the reserve for the front line. So you do not have the ability. You have, this because of the swamps, but you have the inability to hit with multiple units and setting up. So the stacking is a technical limitation here of the game that I could also, put some limitations on it, not like 25 units stacked up here to repeatedly march up and do things. We can have some limitations, but I think we should be able to stack. Okay, yes, Elizabeth, did he answer your question? Good. Yeah, hopefully Arno gets well. I talked to him, just texted him yesterday, and yeah, he's feeling a little better. Yeah, try not to click on bot links. The definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and expecting some. Yep, that is partial definition. Yeah, repeating. Conrad von Holzendorf was incredibly against learning new tactics. Is that the training guy in? Because I don't know the name. I'm just picking that. Is that the trainer out of All Quiet on the Western Front, or is that something else? I don't know. I'm thinking on the mass Russian infantry assaults after days of bombardments. Absolutely. Can you do naval landings? No, there is no navy within this. And historically, the British Navy ruled the seas enough that you would not be able to land a division effectively at this point. That is that. Hey, T2. So yeah, Navy is basically out of it. And the only ones, and they did do some shore bombardments. The British did, but the Germans were way too limited on that. Okay, we're gonna reinforce here, getting ready for more assaults. Now, 8 rounds. Oh, he moved. That's right. He moved up. Okay, we're going to hit this British division and push it back and hurt it badly. Now, here. Okay. Now, with him here, unfortunately, I can't attack, but I can't attack here with the artillery. And we're going to move you up just to get a little push. Okay. Austria-Hungarian chief of the army. He didn't have one successful offensive. Yeah. And the ossification, if I understand, it's sort of like calcification. Build up of unmovable bones or something of the thinking of people is why people lose institutions or lose faith in institutions because of World War One. And again, we're talking about the Western world here. Can't remember the game, but I recall playing one where there was an increasingly penalty for unit cohesion, organization, and movement cost for each moving already occupied square. Yeah, well, there is something like that in Gary Grigsby's War in the East. At least getting too congested, yeah. And so, yeah, I understand and I agree that I don't want to, stack 3 infantry divisions in this one hex because infantry divisions weren't that congested and all attacking at once this one place, one hex in front of us. So, yeah, I'm not entirely against stacking limitations by any means. It's just the inability to stack, especially things like, why can't I put an infantry division on top of this artillery piece? Because, yes, this represents, a core level, a huge artillery park, sure, but that doesn't take up so much space that this division couldn't occupy the same space without penalizing either unit. Now, in defensive here, now, if you're being nuanced, if the enemy pushes one of these divisions back, it comes up, I would only have one division be the frontline division now, and maybe depending on what the other types of units stacked with it, whether it would actually give it a penalty to the one division that is being attacked. Okay, well, I need to get this guy forward. Because, again, I'm using him as the main source of offense against the enemy. Okay, so there you see we took a total of 5 factors of damage, if you will. And these represent, deaths, wounds. I would also say just disruption of units, that were involved in the attack, that are disrupted. So they're no longer a cohesive, currently cohesive force. It represents the loss of immediately supplied ammunition, and also equipment. So next turn, when I get the chance and I reinforce it, that represents new people showing up, replacement machine gun here and there, resupply of ammo, and maybe like a lot of fresh food and other things to get the unit back into shape to be on the offensive. But for the cost of 5 factors, I took out 10 factors of the enemy, plus, and this unit, and within this game here, that unit will be rebuilt faster than if you were purchasing a new unit, because you'll notice when I lose a unit, there'll be a little asterisk next to the name, and it can be reconstituted, and it comes in faster. So it isn't and it shouldn't be here because this unit wasn't like, and this game doesn't really have a mechanic for surrounded units being destroyed. But it's just, it functionally gets destroyed, reduced to like less than half of actual manpower strength or whatever, and retreats back, and it will take days or weeks to get back to being here. So it works out pretty well. I think they're doing this. Artillery tanks planes should be attachments or modules to an army unit or something like that. Yeah, T2, that's actually what Warplan has done. And I know Bill and Hubert, and I'm not good at names and remembering things, but I know the guys, the main devs at here for Strategic Command, and I also know Al, and I'll use his shortened first name because I've actually not just typed talk, I've actually talked with Al because I was doing some testing and whatnot for Warplan in the day. And Warplan and Strategic Command are both published by Slytherin/Matrix. They inhabit very much the same space of a game. Warplan does not, and this is sort of, you know, a DLC for not the whole Grand War. Warplan just has Warplan Pacific and Warplan Europe right now. So I know the guys that produce both of these games. So I can, you know, internet friends with both of them. So this isn't a slam on any of them. But the way Warplan does it, and they're mostly cores, is that they do have like an anti-tank detachment or an artillery detachment that would represent a reinforcing of it. Now here at this scale, we're down at divisions instead of cores, and the actual heavy artillery does sort of kind of have this range of being able to set back a ways, so you're not part of the frontline division, and also the ability to hear, oh, well, I'm going to shoot at this turn, I'm shooting at this division, and next turn, or even in the same turn if I have enough rounds, shoot some at this division and shoot some at that division. So this works in my mind as a better representation. I know it isn't a simulation. I know it isn't, 100% reality here, mirroring or modeling that. Maybe more similar to Shadow Empire. Yeah, Shadow Empire does things really well. I like Shadow Empire. I played a few hours of it. It's sort of a post-apocalyptic on other planets, after human expansion into space. I sort of like the concepts and all of it. It's just so many games and so little time that I haven't played more. Question, does the asterisk thing only work for units that were on the map at the start of the game? I have noticed that I have lost some units, and when I went into production menus, there's no asterisk unit mentioned. I don't know, Mirror Man. I presume, because I do lose periodically units, and I thought, and whether I've only just lost units that were originally on the map, obviously, and as time goes on and things, I have noticed units added to this. They've thrown in a lot of names here, but we can see here they don't yet have any MPP. So I don't know. I don't know that. Maybe you could dig in the manual, but I don't. We have units recruited after the game started. I don't know. Some units aren't replaceable, especially units like ships. Think it was maybe cavalry units or air units. I don't know. Other times they are asterisk. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. So I'm not going to make it up if I don't know. And so what I'm not doing is I'm looking here, if I weaken that, you've already attacked. I'm going to leave you here because I want to keep this line strong here as we're moving forward, and as I'm talking. You notice I am controlling this rail link into here that comes back to here. So we can see here I have reasonably decent supply coming into here that I wouldn't have otherwise, and if I push in. So this is very much affecting here. Now, okay, yeah, okay, he can reinforce. So not good enough to send reinforcements into all of these units. Well, he'll move faster along that railing here later on. I want to get him down here to supply and command and control that better. Now here we have been pounding a bit with just infantry, mostly on when they come into this hex. It's sort of this hex right here represents the weakness of the AI of this game, in that they will stupidly move units in there. Now I'm going to go grab a Coke, and I will be right back and continue. So hold on just a few seconds, less than a minute. Walk in the other room, come back. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I need to play again and take note of what units recruited. Yeah, no room service. No. Hey, Admiral Teague. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, Admiral Teague. I hope things are going well with you. The official drink of strategic live streamer. I endorse that. Yep. That's about as hard a drink as I get is Coke, or Pepsi. Otherwise, yeah, no, don't drink alcohol. Yeah, no, I don't have room service here. And I know some of you know at least some of this. I am currently up at my secret mountain base that I'm building, sort of, by that mean house remodel going on. I am planning, I think, next week driving back to California. That I'll spend maybe a month in California packing up. And then I'll come back here for a few weeks, and then I'll probably head back to California for the bulk of the year, packing up and getting moving, maybe make a few moving trips up here. So, yeah, I am planning in my new home, that in my secret mountain base that's going to be the permanent one, to set up an actual studio room. And, hey, I will have a camera so you can actually see who I am. So, but planning with, cool background and all of that kind of thing. I think separate, or T2 says, separate unit of an artillery unit makes more sense when the map is a battle more zoomed in. But yes, I entirely agree with you, T2. Map continental scale, yeah, you're absolutely. I entirely agree with you. The on the grand scale of this game, whether it's World War I, World War II, whatnot, I entirely agree with you. The only thing that you really shouldn't be attached to the units, in my opinion, would be the air units, because they're, again, more flexible. Which corps are they supporting this turn type of thing, as opposed to integrated into the corps. But then air units should not be, because there's obviously fewer and fewer hexes, should not be a traffic jam problem for moving, a Panzer Corps around at that stage. So, yeah, I entirely agree, sir. Going great. Well, thank you, Admiral T. If you want to, everyone, oh boy, let's see here. I'm going to do this because he is my friend, and Let's get it. I had to hit the right. Yep, there it is. If you like things Star Trek, old Star Trek, and or want to make fun of new Star Trek, um, yes, check out Admiral Teague's channel. He is a great live streamer, um, but he also deals with other pop culture stuff. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to his channel. It is best if you're only going to watch, if you're actually going to think you're going to watch some of it. I know a lot of people ask for subscribers. I mean, we all do, but if you're not really going to watch any of the content ever, I'm not saying you got to be like a daily watcher or anything. It's best to have a it's best not to just have a lot of subscribers that aren't watching, I should say. At least that's my understanding of the YouTube algorithm. But do check out his channel. And it is good. Now, once in a while, he will also go do a watch party of a movie and with, shall we say, himself and a panel of experts. I was one of them once when we looked at, and it's still up there, the movie Patton, and we talked about the movie and, of course, about Patton in general. So do give that channel a look. Right. Okay. So now we're into the part of the front that we're actively pushing on the enemy. And so let's take away the units. And this is what is important. Video essays and uploads as well as live streaming these days. Well, very good, very good. And I'll try to check out some of your video essays. Bring something here. And so what we have done here is by capturing this hex and these hex, we've cut off rail links, though this is a secondary supply source up here. So they're not going to purely run out of supplies. But by cutting them off means they won't get new units. So as I kill units up here, they will not be able to magically reappear here. And so what we are trying to do is cut off this entirely. That shows units that can. I don't know that button. Let me no. Is it info? Would that get me? Hotkeys. There we go. Let's see. Bottom right's on the bottom bar, second from right. Bottom bar. I think I see this. Okay, great. Thank you. Because, and this is one thing that, thank you, Mirror Man. That 10 is the full strength unit here. But like, where's the good here? Either because of supply issues, or since he has, well, I don't know if he does. Let's see. Yeah, supply issues, or if he's moved or whatever, you can't get reinforcements this turn, but he's still at 9. So trying to find all of the ones there. Hey, General Sorrow, how you doing? You have the sound off now. Okay, General Sorrow, we're moving slowly. We're going to play this scenario on the Allied side. What a nightmare. Well, that would be interesting. I have not played it from the Allied side. That maybe I should. Orange one with the first 8 cross. Yes, we got that. the button beside. Okay, so that's good to know. But now also, if you've given yourself reinforcements this turn, you can't do anything else with that unit. So we have to see where and what we want to attack. Also, max barrages you can save up is 10. These just have 4. We can't really save up this. We're going to drop fire on that, disrupt that. Okay, let's hit this unit here. We can come up to here. We want to see about that is a detachment, so we want to actually move the division up. Now he's fallen back. Right. Now normally I wouldn't be doing this, moving up here, because I don't want, I would want to, well, I would move up, but I would reinforce and not attack. That's another element that I've been doing is, like, again, we can see here, entrenched units. These are the entrenchments. Instead of just pushing, and then have a unit not entrenched and get a counterattack and be heavily damaged, maybe destroyed, I don't want to do that. But here, they could strategically redeploy in other units to here, but they won't be able to attack that turn. There very well may be somebody down here, but are they going to be able to, in a large enough numbers, come up? And obviously from the south here, we're behind a river, so that does give us a defensive bonus. So that meant it wasn't likely to be heavily hit. Now here, no, we can't entrench. So I'm not going to come here and just give them a so that way we can do that. Now down here, we have artillery, we have tanks. We just need to figure out where our best victim would be if we concentrated on. Fire up along here. So we only have 2 rams. Not as much as I would like, and he is also somewhat vulnerable to the south and being moved up and attacked artillery directly. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to entrench. Like I say, let's get that face down. He can come in, move up along the road, replace. He is going to get reinforced. This is a ground attack bomber. We want to move up. Our reconnaissance bomber, which next turn we'll see about reinforcing, which sort of represents both reconnaissance and sort of light bombing. I think this is where we're going to strike here. So we will fly over there, and it's sort of, you get the idea of, you know, they used to take pictures of the trench lines and whatnot to then plot better artillery. Now this is just a ground attack bomber, so now we are better odds at attacking, and yeah, we'll fire 1 round. Those others did not have terribly a now he's still alive. Now this guy here, he's an older, or a unit that has not been upgraded, but we will still shift him to the front here because I want to if I can fully take out a unit, I want to do that. Now here, this guy, he's going to attack one of these 2. Yeah, let's deal with the Americans. So that really hurt him down there. Okay, so we pushed on that. Now here, well, I don't know, we can maybe ignore him for the moment. And again, we are running our supply down to here, so we want to take this this town, but we can also push back in here. Yeah, we're moving the artillery up. Yeah, okay, 4 and 4. And I'd rather take the damage on this unit here. If we get, yeah, 2 for killing 4. There we go. And no damage. So they were disrupted. So we've taken another piece off the board, at least temporarily. And that is moving things. Okay, we have this new unit here. It is a detachment. It has just one little dot above it. That's also a detachment. So we're weakening the line here. That's another detachment that I put in. I think we will come. Let's use, yeah. So we're weakening the line by making it weaker, by putting weaker units in here. But this has just been a static, no attack on either side for a long time. And it's just tying up their units. Now, down here, we've sort of collapsed some of their front. I think we'll leave that as such. All right, now let's look up here. Don't know why they're not in good enough supply to reinforce. Okay. Let's use this. Normally don't over reinforce. At least not the frontline units. But the artillery I do. Because it costs a lot of points to over reinforce, and I don't want them just the next battle being knocked back down. All right, well, let's give that off. Let's give the Entente its turn. Now, Germany was in a bad way at this point in World War I. It was, at least to my understanding, more or less able to feed its army. But the combination of population going up, like they're worried, after World War II, with the huge population boom, about the world gets about 3 times as many people as before, as the 19th century into the 20th century. They're actually worried about, overpopulation. Don't be. Anybody who's out there screaming about overpopulation on the planet is at best misguided. So we're not anywhere near overpopulation. But they worry about it, and it's fine to study it, but it's not a real thing. So, yes, the population of Europe has gone up considerably, and that is an issue for Germany in particularly. But what is also a massive issue is all of this manpower that we're seeing representing in these chips as well as on other fronts around the war means a lot less farming is going on. Because although Germany is an industrialized society and one of the most industrialized on the planet at the time, it's still a labor-intensive agrarian society. You got to realize these people didn't have tractors like we think of tractors for farming, and a lot of the tractors that places like Britain are using, and I think Germany as well, they're like steam tractors that they're doing a lot of work. And tractors back then weren't just used for towing things like plows and harvesting machines, but they would also hook up belts to them too. Yeah, that cavalry unit is taking it pretty hard. We'll see if he even survives. He might. Looks like he did. We'll switch him out with at least one of the units from behind. And, to do other farm labor chores, but you're still talking easily 2 to 4 guys, working the tractor. Now, they're doing a lot more efficiency than 4 guys just doing, their stuff. And trust me, animals, of various types help immensely on the farm, but they still are labor intensive to maintain. So it's not just get more horses or get more oxen or other farm animals. I know down in the Mediterranean they use a lot more donkeys and whatnot to help with the farming. There's a lot of manpower. So you take all that out of the the food supplying part of the economy, you're going to have a lot less food. And so food is very much of an issue. Now, at this time, there's basically peace with Russia. The Russian Civil War is heating up, but the Germans are, like I say, more or less at peace with it and with Russia. And they've taken possession of the Ukraine very heavily to benefit from its food. So thousands of British engineers strike against conscription. And that is most assuredly helping Germany, but it is an issue here. Now, because we are having a bit of a breakout, because we see the French looking like they are going to maybe respond to this, we're going to put this division down here. And we're going to put this detachment down there to help with the line. Because if we can break through here a bit and push, that will flank the French heavily there and cause them to react to it. I am not planning, if they let me, sure, I'll push deep in here. But that's not the plan. The plan is to get them to feel they need to reinforce this, which will allow me to push somewhere like up here. Okay, these are detachments that I'm looking at. I want to put them up here to sort of guard against breakouts up here and allow me to pull some of the divisions off of this thing. The Germans get Industrial Revolution late and all at once. Yeah, the Germans, well, one, it's uneven because even when we see the German Empire, it is a patchwork of differing constituencies. And I say that because there could be, what is Prussia? Prussia is a political entity still at this time within the German Empire, and it has possessions way out here in places in the West as well as what we think of as West Prussia, which is sort of Berlin, East Prussia, which, as you know, sort of, over in, Königsberg, and, out in what is today Poland. And so, yeah, Prussia is all over the place. And then you get, in essence, still city states, within it. And it's all this kinds of, they all have their own police forces. The army is somewhat rationalized, but I think there's 3 armies in Germany. I know at least 2. There's at least the Prussian army and then the Bavarian army. Now they're using more or less the same, field uniforms and the same equipment types, but they have their own command structures and all kinds of stuff. So the German army, it's really the National Socialists, when they get in power in Germany, really start to rationalize things in the German state. That's only when it really starts to modern rationalization. So it's very uneven in Germany. Now, I would say Germany is a second tier or second wave, or however you want to say it, of the industrialization. The first, of course, tier really is Britain. It really is. It kicks the whole thing off. France, at least France as in, this is France, Paris. At least this, and generally saying it's environments, but up here in France's industrial area is most vulnerable because it's up here, at least before World War One. It is also coming along with the first tier, and America in spot is part of the first tier industrialization. Places like New York or Chicago. Obviously, you can get, even in the East Coast, very rural areas that are very, very unindustrialized. Hello, Paulette Can? Paulette Can? Okay, hello, Paulette. How you doing? So that's sort of first wave industrialization. Germany is in there with the second wave, pretty strong. But you got to realize, even at this point, places like Italy, and now all of these areas for transportation, well, outside of railroads or steamships, but transportation is still massively animal. Yeah, we can talk about the Miracle on the Marne and how they conscripted, at least temporarily, a bunch of taxi cabs and other trucks from Paris to rush some troops around. Yes, that's real and it happened. But that's, again, Paris. And then, I don't know, the few city taxi cabs or whatever in some of these cities. It's, literally like handfuls at this time. Most of the daily, in places like New York City, even as late as this, and yeah, I know Henry Ford has his Model T already out, but there are still heavy uses in urban environments in America of animals, particularly horses, to deliver things in and around the city. So we are industrializing at this point, but it is still heavily use in animals. In America right now, in 1918, there is an economic boom going on. These are areas named the Blue Banana. Okay, don't quite get that. That there, there's an economic boom. There is a draft. We are drafting men. I don't know quite how heavily it is at 1918 as a percent of the male population of the draftable age, but we're definitely doing that. And there's definitely photos from this time period of like some women with huge blocks of ice being delivered in some city, I don't know. So women are taking over these jobs. They got ice tongue, but they've got probably 2 women or maybe even more for a block of ice that maybe a man would have carried prior to it. Because refrigeration, yes, exists, but and there's refrigeration at the ice house that's making the ice, but to go out to everybody's homes, basically non-existent outside of maybe some super rich families, and only maybe. Um, but America is making weapons. DuPont is becoming extremely rich, making explosives. That's their chemical company. And other war materials from prior to the war getting started. But then once America enters, the government is massively buying things. But there is also a farming boom going on. Food prices are through the roof. In Europe, I don't know the details of it by any means. I do believe they were doing some rationing. I know they were doing rationing in Germany. But like I say, food prices are skyrocketing. And so American farmers and others like Canadians and Australians and whatnot, and places like Argentina and that now. So like I was talking earlier, there is a food situation in Germany. Mostly it's not starvation for the Germans. I don't know about some occupied peoples. But they were definitely not the National Socialists and how they were treating occupied peoples. But I'm sure Germans got priority. So, again, places like France, Britain, they have access to the world's food supply, and they're importing lots of it. So the American farmer is making a lot of money. And this also causes American food prices to go up, just simply that the Europeans are willing to pay more for food. That makes food more costly in America. But because of the war, many Americans at a very high level of employment and relatively good employment. So although things may cost a bit more, they're actually being employed. So it's not that big of a hardship for the American people. But, well, and so what is happening is these farmers are doing great. So they invest. They invest in farm machinery, including, some of the early stages coming out of tractors. And I'm, again, we're cars are a very luxury thing. Ford has come out and, put cars that are affordable to the middle class kind of thing. That's really all that it is. And so they're out there. And so, but they're also doing tractor, internal combustion engines, but also still, you've heard of steamrollers. Well, those are steam engines that are, in essence, trucks that have a big roller in front of them to flatten things. And these still being heavily used into the 1920s and 30s. So steam shovels and other big lift items are still being operated by steam heavily. And so the farmers take out loans because these things are expensive. Tractors and other farm machinery. They take out loans. They, invest in their developing agriculture. But then there's a complete collapse in this part of the economy because two things happen. The war is over, and it takes a while. They need food for a while, but unlike World War II, with the Americans, with the Marshall Plan, feeding Europe, and including defeated countries, the Germans and the Austrians are, who cares about them? They just better give us their, war reparations that they owe us. And there's also the influenza epidemic. And it really hits hard and really takes a big chunk out of the population. Unlike this more recent one, which, was bad, but the influenza was, towns were literally being wiped out. like you would sort of think of the Black Death in the Middle Ages. And so you have a massive population decline. So these farmers, and this sort of causes the first depression. It's very brief, but is very bad. But it's only like a 6 months to a year depression. So these farmers can't pay off their loans for all the machinery. So they were smart in wanting to upgrade, their equipment, but they just did so at the wrong time. Is really the answer to that. And let's see what Ostgen, fun fact. UK blockade stopped food shipments to the Low Countries, but Herbert Hoover forced his way through the blockade. Interesting. Well, yes, to feed Dutch and the Belgians. Okay, well, I don't know how much that would have fed the Belgians because, again, I don't know. We can remove here and see we have very little Belgian territory, just this little bit that is still not German occupied. What they were worried about is neutral Netherlands trading with Germany. And there was definitely an anti-German propaganda effort, both in Europe and in the Entente countries as well as the United States. Definitely. But the rest of Europe, places like Spain, which don't enter the war, the Netherlands, Scandinavian countries, they don't necessarily see a difference between the two sides. It's just, hey, these countries are at war, we're not. Who cares? Denmark has an arms industry, not huge, because it's not that hugely industrialized country, but it has an arm that basically everybody wants. And it is the first light machine gun, the Madsen machine gun. It goes back to before the 20th century. I don't remember the exact start date. And it's actually was sort of complicated, but it's actually a really good light machine gun. The Dutch end up using it as a frontline machine gun until after World War II, in somewhat of a modified form from its original, but it's still using it for being such an early one. But the Danes know that they're a small power and know that, like I say, everybody wants their gun. And there ends up being a whole spy versus spy going on, that they very quickly, as the war starts out, have a governmental policy of not selling their machine guns to any active combatant in any war. So if you're at peace, you can buy the machine gun. If you're at war, you can't. And no one, I'm not quite sure why, whether it was just the complication of manufacture or the respect of patents. And Spain didn't respect patents, so I don't know. Just a second. Yes, Lushy, the Madsen is really cool. Lushy, yeah. Spain, I don't know about today, probably not because of the EU, but traditionally Spain only recognized foreign patents if that item was actively being made in Spain. So unless you set up a factory in Spain and produce something there, they didn't care about foreign patents. So I don't know why, because it wouldn't have been that hard to get a hold of a Madsen machine gun. And for somebody like Spain, and Spain did have a huge armaments industry in the EBAR, mostly supplying France. And they would have bought the Madsen machine gun, as many as you could give them, at least in their caliber. And it would have been able to be done rather easily into their caliber, the 8mm Lebel. I don't know if it's just a complication of manufacturing or whatnot, but nobody picks up manufacturing the Madsen machine gun. Like I say, there was a whole spy network going on that people were like coming in and pretending to be like Norwegian or Bolivian or some extraneous country that's not in the war, ordering some Madsen machine guns, and then try to get them either smuggled like down to Germany or Austria. Austria tried to get a bunch of them, or actually did get them, or Russia trying to get a hold of them. So, and sometimes they were in warehouses, and they would inform the government, well, these are secretly going to be sent to Germany. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, well, then we'll send them to Argentina, which is really a buyer for Imperial Russia. So they're all trying to get these Manson machine guns, but the Danish are afraid that if they sell too heavily to the Allies, Germany will just invade. If they sell too heavily to Germany, well, maybe not so much as a physical capability that Britain, or this really Britain at the time, or Russia would actually be able to invade them, but cutting them off from other trade and whatnot could be bad. So they really try to play this neutral game. But they don't really have a we're for this side against the other side, like you sort of see in World War II. There isn't this big moral distinction between the sides for the neutrals. So let's go up. Let's see. Let me check out the fun fact. Overpopulation fix our problem fixed. Yes. Marshall Plan wasn't until 48 with the Hoover. Yeah, okay. Crazy sauce. Oh, just like Hoover, his memoirs were very interesting. I would like to learn more about Hoover. I respect him a lot, but I don't know a lot about him. Machine guns and bacon, yes. Machine guns made in Denmark, yes. Beam slam, yes. Beam slam, I do know, is from Denmark. If you're smart, you can combine the two. Yes, you wrap bacon around the barrel of a machine gun, you fire the machine gun, it cooks the bacon. I've seen it done. I've not tasted how well it tastes after that point. Yes. Hello. That's good. Bad president, very good humanitarian, saved millions of people. I don't know that Hoover was a bad president. Hoover got us through the first depression without turning it into a Great Depression. So I know he wasn't reelected and all. So yes, I get that. Okay, we're going to move him out of the front line because he's been pounded really hard, and we won't be able to reinforce him this time. But we'll move these guys in to hold the line. Now, what we did do is move all of, well, maybe I should have attacked. Well, that was too weak to attack. We've got all of these guys here, so we're going to pound, all but 2 shells for this gun. So one more barrage. Pound here. Four, 5. Deal with that later. Okay. Okay, so we take out that division. So all their assaults on this one division that came up there was not a division lost. Here we will two more rounds. Well, hopefully that has beat them down. The one thing, okay, well, we can do this. Take him out. That's what I wanted to do. Take him out. All right. Well, that deals with that. Now, here, okay, we got 10 shells. would have considered here, but we can do is we can hit here. We're going to hit here. We got 10 shells. Let's first fire our big gun. Hello, Jamnuska. Isn't this Warhammer 40K channel? Could be. I am not well versed in the Warhammer 40K universe. Many years ago, I think I listened to one or two of the audio books. But, and I've never, well, no, sorry, scratch that. Many years ago, my cousin had, when I was in college, my cousin had some high school friends that played 40K, miniature tabletop. I played with them on a couple of occasions, but I've never had any of the figures myself. So but I really have enjoyed, and I will be playing coming up later in this month over on Slitherine's channel, Warhammer 40K Battle Sector, and I think a couple of days of Warhammer 40K Gladius. I really love the Battle Sector, and I like the Gladius game. Okay, so now we are here with this, so okay. No damage, and take out light damage. Okay, you guys are doing that. Warhammer Fantasy greater than Warhammer 40K. Very well could be. I know even less about the fantasy-based system. I am much more of a, advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You're not this modern-day crap. Growing up with that. Okay, here we've got 7 rounds. Let's fire some of them at this guy. Goshing seems everybody is streaming it today. Oh, are they? Okay, well. Now I know, like I say, I'm seriously going to be later this month. I'm scheduled with Slitherine to, and I will say, I know many of you know this, whether this is a big reveal now or not. I'm pretty sure this is a Matrix game. Matrix and Slitherine are 2 game publishers that are in essence the same company, meaning they have the same officers, the CEO and CFO and chief publicity guy and all these things are all the same people. It's just a branding difference. And Strategic Command is published by one of them. And I am an outside contractor for that company to stream their games on their channel. Hold on just a second. I got to deal with something. I am back. Yeah, that's why we're here. Yes, because everybody else is streaming 40K, I guess is what you're saying there. So yeah, like I'm not an employee of the company, but I am employed by the company to stream their games. So yes, that might shade my blue face smiling. Yeah, might shade my views of some of this stuff of the game, but I don't think so. Because there are games, I don't need to mention them now. Well, I will mention one, ICBM. I don't like that game. I don't play that game. I don't want to play a game that sort of revels in or jokes about nuclear mass destruction. Warfare is part of human nature. I accept that. Um, so long as there are what I would say bad nations out there, and I know a lot of that, especially like in World War One, that can be very, subjective, even more so than other times. Because I don't have any great dislike and yeah, I know bad things happen. Some of it was propaganda, some of it's very real. But I don't have any great dislike for the German imperial government or the Austrian imperial government or even the, more, in some ways, I guess I'd rather dislike um, the Ottoman Turks and what they were sort of doing, particularly in the Balkans, for many generations. Uh, so, um, yeah. Um, and obviously because of cultural ancestry and of America and Britain, I'm sort of on the Entente side, but I don't have any great hatred for them. So, but conflicts break out within humanity, so I am comfortable with, even if you want to call it trivializing, if you will, and maybe even in a funny sort of game way at times. Like a great, well, I don't know, great, but good Heroes of Normandy, another thing published by Slytherin, that sort of takes a lot of the movies of the 70s, including like Kelly's Heroes, and makes a quick, fast moving board game out of it. They did actually have a board game, or do have a board game, but then they also have a computer game for it. That's sort of a funny game, meant to be that joke sort of stuff. But ICBM and nuking cities and nuking what? No, I just don't play that game. And Slytherin is fine with that. Again, I'm not going to say this so much on their channel, but so they pick what games do, and they actually have a sort of a chart that how well do we know a game, how well do we like the game, to pick who plays what game. So yeah, it's them paying me money would influence me, but I don't really think it does. Okay, that's where we were shooting, I think. Yeah. Okay, so we've pounded that now. I'm going to leave 2 shells back. Now we're at 6-1, so take 1 down off there. Okay, so we've taken out a full 10 strength division for only 3 factors of damage. Felt like a knockoff of DEF CON. Yeah, and I don't even know DEF CON. I'm guessing I've heard of it, but I'm not absolutely sure. And so yeah, and it may be a fun game, and if that's what you want to play, fine. I'm not like one of the crusade. Oh, you should not play this game or anything like that. No, and it may be a either well thought out or just a fun game to play. I just don't like the subject matter and don't want to get my head into it. So I won't. I just don't play it. I'm not saying I wouldn't play it. You could throw enough money at me or whatever, but yeah, it's still not going to be the thing I want to do. I won the game ICBM last year and still haven't played it. Oh, okay, yes, and maybe that's why. Yeah, no, I don't like it. Too fast and gimmicky. But yeah, and if it appeals to you, fine. I'm not trying to criticize people that it appeals to you. It partially, I know that it is that I grew up during the Cold War, and even as a kid, before my teens, I'm not saying it was like a 5-year-old, but somewhere fairly young, and they showed the movie The Day After, which is a bit of a propaganda movie, but I also think has some basis in reality. It's sort of what happens after a nuclear attack, and I think having it in the primary schools and elementary schools was definitely a leftist propaganda move. because kids are a bit maybe too young to really internalize all that, or should be without better context. So I think, and I don't know, and because it was shown to me in class, I don't know whether that was the school's idea or the teacher's idea. I'm not sure where all that came from, whether that was some sort of teacher to teacher sort of leftist plan, or whether they went to the school districts and got it officially put into the school curriculum. I'm not sure. But with that movie, I decided, and and years going on, I decided I did not want to live my daily life as a refugee in the mountains before there was a nuclear attack. Just like, oh well, there might be a nuclear attack. Let's flee the cities and go live in Montana or someplace. I didn't want to do that, and I also decided, if there's going to be a nuclear war, I just want to go out in the first boom. I don't want to survive for a few weeks in the fallout zone and slowly die. But unlike probably their intentions for this, I still maintained, and even fairly young, better dead than red. And the willingness or whatever to have nuclear weapons, to use nuclear weapons, particularly in defense, I was and still am for using. I am not against the use of nuclear weapons when called for. Please note the when called for. So, but I just don't want to trivialize it in that sort of game. So, if it wasn't so focused on that, I would have a different maybe opinion. So I'm not anti-nuke. I do think, like I say, do think that was an anti-nuke movement back in the Cold War. But because of that sort of history is why I do very much shy away from trying to play that game and be part of that. Let's check up with the chat here. I don't like to get to. Okay. My favorite was Miracle Mile. Don't know that one. The perception of the scenario was much more present back in the days, though. Yeah. I think I get what you're saying there. Yeah. Okay. So, and we'll just say, I don't dwell. Trust me. I very much know about the final solution. I'm trying to use YouTube, and please don't don't get me demonetized here or whatever. But the final solution with the National Socialist and whatnot, I'm very much aware of that. But again, I don't want to focus on that or trivialize that in just a game, if you know what I mean. So, and I have talked about it in detail on different, videos where it was appropriate to talk about that. And I do obviously condemn it heavily. So yeah, it's just, like I say, war is part of the human condition, and we can think how it shouldn't be, but I have big heartburn, if you will, with pacifists, because there are, if you will, for lack of a better term, it's sort of, I guess, somewhat neutral because it depends on your perspective. There are barbarians out there, and so long as there are barbarians out there, if you're not willing to defend yourself, the barbarians will take over. And if you survive the barbarians' takeover, they will likely force you to become cannon fodder in their next war. So war is either necessary or a good thing at times, just because, again, it's things that are necessary are good. Okay, what I want to do is I want to get this cavalry division out. It is entrenched. That does mean that it is somewhat effective, but it's not as effective as... No, we want to take out that French unit. No, actually, yes. So we're going to fire at the French unit. So let's see if we can just kill this French unit with tanks. No, but almost. Now let's kill it with this cavalry unit. Trench horses. My God, how evil. Well, I don't know that they're entrenching the horses, but they are... the men, I think the riders get off the horses, and then the riders entrench. That's how I think it's sort of supposed to be working as. Okay, we're down to 4 shells. But we might need that to defend a little better. Last sheet. What is last sheet saying here? Have you heard of Girls Frontline? It's a game that takes place after World War III, where you recently appointed commander of a PMC uses robots instead of people to fight. You fight rebel robots. Okay, well, no, I haven't heard of that. Don't know why it would be girls, but okay. Well, I do say, I don't know how good yet. I'm not seeing what is. Let's see if I can come over here and check that. Which thing is that? Oh, smiley face. Okay. You married a Stig 44. Okay. I don't know how good or how much we should trust AIs in combat. I know some science fiction writers are very much against the idea of AIs being used in combat. Right now, I believe, though I've talked to other people who think they have a better grasp of what AI can do than I do. They fear it. I fear it more right now is, fear it that it's stupid, not that it's dangerous because it's stupid, not dangerous because it's smart. So I can sort of kind of, at least now, though I don't know how you ban something internationally that someone might think is effective in a war. And so we probably should be researching it as well. I think right now a simplistic AI attached to some sort of war machine, and well, it is being done, sort of like in a cruise missile. Even in the early days, and I'm sure they've been upgraded, and I have not been following the upgrades of the Tomahawk missile, but the Tomahawk missile had, or has a basic AI, but even in its early days, that it would use, sort of dead reckoning, or fly so long at this course and this course and get there. Plus, with a look down capability, taking photos to see if the terrain matches what it thinks the terrain should be as it flies over from satellite images that it had been pre-uploaded with. So yeah, and it was just an AI to fly in a pre-programmed path, but it is doing an AI in that it's making sure it's on the path. not just fly in such and such direction for 5 seconds, and then turn for 10 seconds, and then turn for 30 seconds, but actually comparing to the ground and adjusting its course to seeing where it's going to go hit. So that is an AI, and it's again a very primitive AI, and I'm comfortable with something like that. And I'm also comfortable with like if you're having, whether it's an observation drone or a drone that's sitting up in, up fairly high and like shooting down missiles at enemy targets, that I don't know that I want it. If I want the AI to be able to, you can of course physically, not just programmatically, but physically lock them out of systems, meaning just don't attach the brain that does the targeting and firing. Don't even have a separate brain for that versus navigation brain. And so, like, if it loses its signal to its command signal, meaning the controller, whether the controller is sitting out on the battlefield itself or the controller is, a continent away, if it loses contact, or if the contact becomes too garbled or whatever, meaning if it's like being jammed partially or something like that, I could see like the AI goes, oh, hey, wait for a while, move, sort of keep position, wait, however long a while is, could be a few seconds, could be a few minutes, could be an hour, I don't know. But then you go, oh, okay, well, I have not got any coherent input. I'm going to go home. And just sort of the navigation system, like I say, and so the navigation system may be not even physically not able to talk to the targeting system, that is, a human directed thing, not an AI thing. And so, yeah, it'll just go home. And so some basic AIs like that into War Machine, I'm good with. I mean, you might find problems if it's a ground-based AI and it's sort of like an AI tank that you've been remotely commanding. It might drive over people to get home, or drive through a house, a building to get home, and there's people at home in the building. I can see dangers like that, but it's still probably better, as good or better. And we're definitely seeing, and as I was talking earlier, the drones that we're seeing, mostly what we're seeing, of course, are air drones, but we're also seeing sea drones and ground drones in the Ukraine war. And that's massively, massively changing the way warfare will be fought in the future. And let's see what Leshy's saying. Very brief description of the game. The whole goes a lot deeper. There's various Cold War references. The game's lore dates back to the Russian Empire. Okay, very interesting. I mean, I like things like this. I personally married an AK-12 in the game. I don't know why you marry guns, but all right. Don't listen to him. The game is a gun dating simulator. Okay. I just decide to own the guns. I don't do the simulator stuff. But I'm guessing you guys are Europeans, or maybe young kids. I don't know. Big fear of AI cars will be people jumping out in front of them to get it to crash into order to loot the driver. Yeah. Well, we're already seeing people like people everywhere, but a lot of people in China jump in front of cars just to try to get hit to sue and whatnot. Yeah, no, there's serious problems with AI, but AI is here to stay. So instead of trying to oppose or fight the AI in today's context, we're not talking about Terminator context, but in today's context, I think we need to embrace it, but work for good oversight, shall we say, for whatever that may mean, and however that may mean. Meaning, if we're talking about a car's AI, maybe they should be, I definitely get and approve of the idea of private companies doing things that they can, that, on their own or whatever. But once you go from, hey, I'm developing an AI to drive a car and it's driving around like a racetrack or just some sort of track, to then going, hey, we're going to take this car out onto the public streets, there's a change there. Okay. So yeah, maybe we require that any automotive vehicle driving on the public streets, its AI must be published in such a manner and um, in such a way that people can access it. And we could even do the point of, I don't know, do people know what RAM and ROM is? I know most people know what RAM is. It's the memory in your computer. But it's defined, and because I'm old and I know these things, it's defined as random access memory. Okay. There's also ROM, and I don't know if computers even use ROM much anymore, but that is read-only memory. And basically what a ROM is a burned-in program to the computer chip that cannot be changed. So if you want to change it, you got to pull the computer chip out of the computer and put in a new computer chip with a new program in it. So you might want to, yes, Mirror Man, read only memory. So you might want to, because obviously you could have near instantaneous change. I'm thinking, but so you might want to be able to say, oh, hey, if the police or whatever confiscate a car that's like been in a traffic accident or been driving too fast, and it's there was, whether there was a passenger in the back seat or it's just empty, the police, obviously you could have data links and it changes it back to the default one if it had an experimental one in it, but say, oh, we must have it out there. And I know that does allow your competitors to look at it, but you could still copyright the code to whatever degree and whatnot. But to be able to have it out there so that people, hackers or whatever, people with some basic knowledge, not necessarily changing it, but could go in and read it and see what it says, maybe to make developmental improvements, but also to see, is there, can they detect flaws in its thinking, or when it prioritizes, like something like it realizes, it knows it can't stop, which way is it going to steer? What is it going to steer into? Will it steer into the parked car? Will it steer into the old lady? Will it steer into the baby crawling on the grass next to the road? But because if there's a parked car on one side, there's an old lady in front of it in the street, and there's grass next to it, and it detects a baby, where does it steer? And it knows it can't. Let's just say it knows it can't stop. So although of course it's braking so much. Now, me as a human, if I got all that input, I would probably try to run into the car, because if I'm already braking and then impact the car, hopefully I'll survive well, and hopefully anybody in the car will survive well. And I'm talking maybe fairly short distances, but I couldn't get stopped for the person. But how well, obviously, pattern recognition, does it recognize what it's seeing, and those kind of issues too. But so there's a lot you can look at with the AIs, and so you could easily, plug, not necessarily, you don't have to solder in ROM. You can make it ROM that you plug in and plug out, so that whenever whether they want to do random check or monthly checks, or after an incident, to check what the AI is programmed into the car to see that if it matches what it's registered as versions of AI. You might require that to be out there, and because it's going to happen. And sure, some nation may decide, no, we're just not going to have that happen. Well, probably a good, well-rested, well-trained driver, human driver, is going to do better than the AI, especially in edge cases. Now, maybe not driving down the freeway when it can see enough stuff and it knows the lanes. It may have just faster reactions at braking and maneuvering the car not to get in an accident, on a freeway or something. But when you're talking about whatever the edge cases, where the roads are not clear, things are not clear, and stuff that's sort of jumping out in front of it, does it recognize that what's coming out in front of it is a basketball or some person jumping out? How well does it recognize objects? And edge cases, humans might still be better, but AIs are going to get good. But we still need to have, because it's out public interaction, the public having interaction with the AI to know what it's, as you're walking down the street and that car jumps off the street and comes down the sidewalk, why is it doing it? And have the ability to think. Yes, open source, yes. Build open source all the way. Yeah, especially, I'm not talking, we can talk about private AIs. Like, let's say if I were to have an AI that I'm trying to model stock market developments, tell me, put in whatever data, try to then tell me what stocks are going to up and down. Well, that can be a private thing. I know it might affect a lot of people in that if I, have a lot of money and when I'm putting money in and out of the stock market could, affect the price of the stocks. Yeah, I mean, we can always get scenarios like that, but I can see that could be a private thing. And yes, that would be a big corporation, give corporations or big entities massive advantages. Well, then, of course, you just sort of like create a simple program that when this corporation buys stock, you buy some. When they sell it, you sell it, and you're just microseconds behind it or something like that. Still, they would have an advantage. Maybe you shouldn't be in the stock market then. But when you're talking about something that comes onto the, the road that's commonly used, so we have regulations, or if you are an internet service provider that has special legal protections, then maybe your, algorithms, etc., need to be open source so that we see what you're doing. Now, again, if you're not a internet service provider, you're a publisher, like a games publisher, or whatever else that you could be sued over what you say, well, then maybe the game AI can be not open source because, why? I mean, yeah, there's reasons. We can come up with reasons, but it's probably not needed to be open source. So, yeah, I'm, sort of on that sort of position. In Germany, there's moving over to Linux because they don't like knowing what's inside Windows. Very true. Linux, because Linux isn't a thing, Linux is many different things based on its, and again, I'm not an expert on it, but I know this much about it. There's a bunch of different versions of it. Makes it very hard for most people, unless they want to do a deep dive into it, to really understand what's going on. Apple is sort of the other extreme, and it's just so simple. You just push buttons. They only have one mouse button. You don't get 2 or 3 or 6. It's all simplified. Well, Linux is the opposite. And not just because I remember the old days where I had to do command lines to start a program. That was fine because it was still, it was pre-Windows, and that we did not have Windows then, to deal with on the screen. But it was the same code on all the machines. It wasn't this machine is running this version of Linux and another machine is running a different version of Linux, so things work differently. It was all the same. So that little big Schleswig-Holstein wants government to run free open source software. It's very interesting. Yeah, that's good. If government's for what the government is doing, that's good. I know I use Linux Mint right now. I play games using Wine. Exactly. And I've heard of both Wine and Mint. I have no idea the benefits. The DOS days, yes. This operating system, yes. I go back to the original. The first computer that I really got into was the original Apple II. And the Apple II Plus was probably coming out about that time, but my dad bought a used Apple II, so the old disk operating systems and whatnot, which is still behind Windows in what you're if you're on at least on a PC using Windows. It's just Windows laying over DOS. Yes, I'm old. For good or for bad, I'm old. All right, so here if we attack here, it's not going to be too good. I moved my artillery away from here. I don't know that this is a problem because, again, we're pushing down here. We're pushing up here. I do not have an endless amount of artillery. So what I think I'm going to do, okay, well, fire at this guy. Now we're going to move that up. He's going to move down to here. And this detachment's moving into the line there. I think that's enough to defend from attacks there. So I don't think they're going to push in. Let's attack here. Let's come down this way. Okay, well, good. He moved, but now he gets to attack. And so we've cleared that out. You can come up to there. Better supply things. I learned COBOL in high school. I'm older. Fortran too. Well, I was talking to my aunt. Well, actually, it was late last year. I think she was talking about how, oh man, I forget some of the details. I mean, it's not been that long and I'm not really that old, but that she got rehired at a rather high expense for a while to reprogram some company systems, Fortran. And this was, a couple of decades ago, because they didn't have people around that knew it, and she did. So yeah. Okay, we're going to move you all the way back here because you're horsies. You can move fast. Get you out of the front line. We're going to move this readiness 92, morale 60 guy up to the front here. And are we dug in? And right, yes. Okay, we are dug in. Okay. He's already attacked, but he is very weak. So we're going to I get some defensive artillery. I think I would written the 80s for the state. Yeah, it's the governments are often way behind on what they're doing. Okay, now we're going to directly attack the artillery, mess them up badly, and then we're going to retreat. And we have just taken our artillery piece off the board. Now we are not dug in, which I don't like that. They can hit us hard, but right now it looks like, and I did take this into calculation. Gee, Yeah. Yeah, New Year, 160 an hour. Those were the days. Oh, Paul, yeah, that'd be great kind of money, especially back then. Are they? There. I don't think there's a lot of French soldiers sitting around in here in the grayed out areas. So to attack this unit, they can attack from here. They can attack from here. Okay, that's 2 attacks. We'll probably survive. To really knock it out, they'll probably need to move one or more of these out of position. I don't know that they'd be able to get back into position. So I don't know that they're going to do that to attack this unit, but it did eliminate a French artillery piece from the map. They'll be able to rebuild it, but it will take a while. We'll attack this one here, shatter that. Hey, Ari, how you doing, my friend? And so now we've also eliminated this guy here. So there may be a few more in here because they keep coming up, but I think we're good, and we're putting a lot of pressure on their front. Now, everyone, I categorize wars in 2 basic types, and they can switch between them. One is maneuver and decision. Okay, you maneuver around, and then you have a battle, and you have a decision to the war. And a case in point here is if we maneuver around well enough and we take Paris, we're only this far away from Paris right here. And if we were to really plunge straight into here, I think we would have a lot of French and British units. Campaign's doing well. Good to hear, Harry. If this would allow them to concentrate their forces. That's why we're pushing in other areas as well. And so, like I say, maneuver and decision. You take Paris, you functionally knock France out of the war, kind of thing. The other type of war is attritional war, okay? Yeah, in attritional war, positions do matter, fortresses, river lines, industrial areas, yeah, they matter. There is strategy to them. But the main strategy with attritional war is to make the war more costly to the enemy than it is you, and to bleed them white before you get bled white. So that could be manpower, it could be production, and other factors, including morale factors and other things. It's not just a thing. It's a combination of things. So with that in mind, that's part of what I'm doing here with this playthrough, is playing it smart and knowing that, yeah, maybe it's a bit late by 1918. And again, we started with this scenario. But the idea that is winning by attritting the enemy much more than they attrit you. That is very much part of what I'm thinking with this. Okay, we're going to take this American unit out, I believe, this turn. We've got 6 shells here, 6 shells here, and the big gun here. So we're going to fire the big gun here. And I want to take them out without heavy casualties. It's not... So I could easily hit them with 4 divisions. And another player might be a little bit more, hit them with the divisions. Okay, let's see now. They've retreated there. Which is going to allow me... Oh, you see? Yep. Ah, damn. Well, we're going to come back here. We're going to move him up here because I do want to fully take out this division. Now, he can move back up into here. He's already attacked this turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to send him back. Okay, we still have 5 shells. But what I think we're going to do is just go about this methodically. Come in here, take the entrenchments. I believe that's the best angle here. He can now fall back to here, so he won't be hit by all these other French units. Okay, that is a division. We will. Yeah, we will. We will move. Oh, we don't know what's right there. That could be a surprise. Let's fly here. Oh, well, no, we sort of. Okay, no, we do know what's right here. So, okay, we will move up here and we will entrench. Yeah, that's what we want. And now all three of these, well, three because we're including the railway gun, will be able to fire at. That currently, it's a detachment. They would probably be smart if one of the that's a division if they want to move a division in there. But now next turn, we could have maybe taken it this turn, but the question is how much cost to us would it have been? I know we do in this scenario do have a clock time ticking down, but I would rather, in my opinion, right now, would rather lose the overall scenario, but um, save a lot of lives. What very well may happen um, is by doing this now, attriting them out with low cost for ourselves. We can move you here and entrench. Is that we in essence break them enough that then we can just flow in instead of pushing hard into it. Okay, now these guys here, we are a bit weak on the ground here. Get to there. So you come up to here and attack this HQ. Okay, bye-bye HQ. We've taken up the American HQ, at least right in there. Still French, obviously, up here. Oh, let's attack that tank unit. So, reconnaissance bomb it. Okay, heard it there. They didn't have enough enemy fighters to intercept that operation. Ground attack bombers, that's hurting it even more. Yeah, it's a hell of an encirclement. One. Okay. Yep. I think we're going to fire all 10 rounds. Is there? Okay. All rounds completed. Okay, one hit. Let's this out here. Well, no damage. Okay, well, they've retreated. That one unit is a bit more vulnerable, but we'll see how well they can resupply that thing. Now, our tank is up here, obviously. Let's move there. Okay, we're pushing for here. But, okay. We can't shoot here or here, but we can shoot here, here, or here. I think this trying to close this is more important. Let's go after the one that the tank can also attack. Couple of rounds on it. Save a few for defensive fire. Swap these out. He'll probably survive there, but we've shattered another division. And it'll take a little bit to get divisions into going after this 5-strength unit. So now down here, yeah, we'll wait. We can wait. No. The trench doesn't have defensive from that angle. So we're going to fire our last, well, before we do that, this guy here. Let's fly over here. Bomb and reconnaissance that. That way we know where to fire our shells more effectively. And that's 4-1. Okay, so we hit there. Take out 5 factors. Now we're down to 4. So let's take out 3 factors and they. Okay, so what we're going to do now here is swap these 2 out and finish this off. Yeah. There we go, with damage of 1. So we've taken out a division for a few damage points, which I think is worth the battle attrition. And see, if soldiers were seeing that, not just we're walking into machine guns, and maybe we drive them back, half a kilometer for you commies out there, or, a third of a mile for the freedom people. Back a few trench lines back. And then we look back and see all of our dead. And I see a bunch of enemy dead too. You see all of our dead, and all we did is move a few trench lines forward. And even if we keep doing that, but we're still just doing that, over the space of one of these hexes for a few months, and you have huge amounts of dead, and yeah, you're killing the enemy too. Maybe, though probably not likely, but and even if you are killing more of the enemy than the enemy's killing of you, a lot of your enemy killing, if you're running an offensive, very well may be happening with things like artillery that you're not seeing the dead bodies because they're being cleaned up or whatever before you get there, because they're happening a day or two before. You're wondering why you are being pushed into these combat. But if you're seeing effectively, because then you would notice it on the battlefield, effectively a couple of divisions shatter. And yeah, we are not moving in. And it's realistic in a way, in that if you just spend a lot of time attacking a place, I think these are every 2 days, these turns, you're not going to have the time to really entrench. Obviously, there's entrenchments. Obviously, there's shell holes. And these shell holes do affect movement costs and whatnot. Tanks have a really big trouble. So, yeah, it's not that you wouldn't be able to defend, but it's not a well thought out, well planned defense. But if you've taken all the time of the 2 days of your turn to set up those entrenchments, 10, 20,000 men can do a lot of digging in a day. And you're using materials, scrounged from the enemy positions, as well as materials brought up by your supply column. You can entrench a lot more. And so, yeah, that is a realistic idea. But it wouldn't quite be so, how do I put this, so stark of a difference as it is here with this. Okay, we want to take out these guys in this town. We have 5 rounds here, so let's fire 5 rounds. Or 5 barrages, or however you want to do this. And again, this is sort of meant to mimic storing up the supply of shells. So we're going to move you up here, move you along here. Now, okay, we're going to move you back here. Okay. And so what I wanted to do was just, you can't get down to there. Okay, well, I'm going to risk it. Oh, there was nobody else there. I think there may be a reserve behind it. Okay, but now we did push in. Yeah, I think this is useful here. But we've got the town that and we're seeing there's like 3 units here, and I don't know, they may be able to get some other forces up here, but will the AI? But we've secured the town, we've secured this rail line, which will bring supplies more forward as it gets repaired. So we're doing good there. Now, down here on this unimportant but useful flank, yeah, okay, 2 points, and then entrench. There we go. So we're entrenched there. You come up to there. So we'll see how they like this. We're very potentially pushing on the south from here, which may get them to react. So what we're going to do is we're going to strategically move them via railroads and come down here. So we'll get this pushing. Now we're going to, my new favorite button, let's put reinforcements where we can. Do like this. Quickly go over where we can reinforce it. Can't. Okay, we have lots of purchasing power because we're not losing units. They're still not getting any purchasing power yet. They are coming from, oh, yeah, we're going to get some Austrians coming as well as Burma. The you're just pushing up on research. Yeah, all of it. There we go. Oh, well, I don't care about aircraft defense. No tanks. Well, we maxed out our tanks units, so we have none in production that I know of yet. No. I think, what do we have? 2 or 3 tank units. What, we have one down here. I think it's just 2. I think we have that one down here and this one here. I don't think I have another. I'd love another tank unit. I don't know if I would want more tanks or more artillery. You know, which I would want the most. Obviously, I'd want both, but the the most element, what I would want the most, I am not sure. Tanks so far in this game, my biggest problem with them is after I've shelled an area and then attacked, and there's an open, an open heck, they can't move in it because it's too costly for their movement. I'm going after my vulnerable infantry there, and okay. Yes, exactly, Beam Slam. They're not very reliable, and they're very slow. Yeah, no, I forget what you were saying. And they actually did find, and I think this is part of the calculus of the game, that tanks could do all right, and specifically some of the British tanks, I believe, were designed to cross. Oh, that's could be very bad. Maybe not. Oh, but were designed to go over terrain after it had been bombarded. So they had that big rhomboid shape that was, fairly long, and in some models they even had a bit more of a steering wheels in the back and get over trenches. But those were, like you say, very slow. Not that any of them were fast, but were overly slow, maybe would be the term. Looking at that, now we know what the right design balance, again, it's not very reliable and it's slow still, is the Renault FT series, FT17s. Some people call whether it's the machine gun or the main, the 37 millimeter gun version, the FT18, but whatever you want to call it, the FT series. They're shorter. That means crossing, shell holes and other obstacles can be more difficult, but it can also be better in that they're more maneuverable. Maneuvering around tight spaces. So there's benefits and there's detriments to the design. But they did sort of find that, I think it was a combination of things, like everything in life. Attacking where you don't have a previous bombardment, so that the ground is good and solid, because also it does churn up the ground, not just are there potholes in the ground, or big shell holes or something like that, but is there Oh, our Austrians have showed up. Okay, so now we have the Austrians are starting to show up. Okay, I don't think, yeah, useful for a tactical breakthrough, absolutely. I don't think these Austrians are going to be terribly good in quality, as in, research development or whatever. I don't know that their morale would be bad, but so I don't know, more is better, okay? And even if compared to what we'll call a first-rate German division here, a second-rate um, Austrian division is still useful. But you don't necessarily want to put them onto your spearhead of your offensive. You want to use them like we've been using the detachments over here. And well, we're only giving me limited spots to bring them in, but we could. So when you give them limited spots like this, you want to put them on the rail line so that you can strategically redeploy them when you can, next turn. And so this would be very useful if I move these two to the front line here, and as some of the more to replace particularly the divisions that are still here. And we can also get, if we get, I think there's like, what we can check here. Wrong thing. Here, theoretically, I think this is meant maybe more for rebuild, replacing. So we're going to have 5 or 4 divisions in an HQ. I think that's going to be the max that we'll have. So we could easily put, 4 divisions along here somewhere, and an HQ, which will free up an HQ, and 4 other divisions that will be carrying the front. So yeah, things are useful. So getting back to it. So yeah, solid ground, relatively smooth ground. I mean, there may be ripples in it of hills and whatnot, but was going to be easier to traverse than ground chewed up by lots of shells. And 2, it's a surprise that if you can move the tanks into the area without the enemy knowing that they're there, I mean, and they can know hours beforehand, but you don't want them days beforehand, so that they can't either bring up like a lot of artillery shells and or artillery to bombard or bring in reinforcements. Because what would happen for either side is once there was starting to be a large artillery bombardment, and they'd often do this just to do a large artillery bombardment, is then you bring reserves up to that part of the front line. Now, you don't bring it right into where they're being bombarded, but you're, setting up a secondary rear line so that if there is a big push at your section of the front here, your front line may collapse, but hopefully, and before it collapses, you've done heavy damage to the enemy, and then you retreat back, and then you have your solid second line, if you will, or however solid it would be. And so it was, let's do a preparatory bombardment. Oh, a few hours before, sure. And because, again, in a pre-industrialized, motorized world, you can't bring up a lot of stuff. Oh, well, we didn't win. Okay, so let's go for the 4-day instead of 4-hour bombardment. Well, those 4 days allows reinforcements to come up, however effective the bombardment may be. So if you just bring the tanks and they're there as a surprise, the enemy's not prepared for it, and they break through. Let's see what Merriman's saying. Did you know that your command units have a rating and you can replace low-rated commanders with better-rated commanders so they have better resupply? No, I did not know that I could replace them. I did know that they were different ratings. I had noticed that. 6, 7. I don't know how to replace, how do I take them off the map to be able to build more? Is that it here? Oh, okay, here, sack and replace with. Okay, interesting. So I found a 6. There's a 9, so we don't want him gone. Okay, interesting. I did not know this. See, there's things to learn. If I read the manual, I might know these things, but no, I don't read the manual. Okay. Okay. Ernst Younger complained about the inability of the brass to push the initiative, saying battles are won with wooden boats and hearts of iron. Okay. Yes. I understand it. Right click on. Okay. If they haven't moved. Yeah. If I recall, command units gain and lose experience depending on losses they take. Right click exact. No. All right. Should be replaced. 5 and 6 should be replaced. There's an 8th in the production queue. Okay, so we have a 7. The lowest one I saw out here was a 6. And these may have gotten better. Well, okay, so let's see if we sack. Okay, we have Prince Ruprecht, von Kulik, and von Marwitz at 8. So let's put von der Marwitz here. Yes, 75 MPP. We have the MPP. So we went from there. Okay, cool. Thank you. Uh-huh. Okay. Now we've got a lot of these forces here. Okay, so now we've spotted what's there. So these guys, oh, they can't come up there. They could. Okay, they only have 3 action points, so. Because if I move them up here, it's going to cost 3, and they won't be in the trench, and then they'll just be pounded by units. So we're not going to do that. We're actually going to fall him back because low supply levels here. We'll bring him up. He's just a detachment, but hopefully this is making the AI reposition things. I don't know if the AI gets worried, but it will reposition stuff. And the more units that can come down here, because we can again look, yeah, oh sure, taking an objective, yeah, great, cool. Secondary supply source, which is sort of supplying in here. Yeah, great, cool. I mean, not that I don't want to take it, but I don't care. I mean, this is way out here. We're supposed to be taking Paris. And again, people here, I know a lot of you know my maxims, but I am a firm believer in the indirect approach. So the path to Paris isn't this. The path to Paris is this. Okay. I don't need to take this fortification, but I do need to fully isolate it and then leave a weak screening force. But by doing that, we've killed a lot of units. We're forcing a lot of units to come over here to deal with this. The other path to Paris is more of a path up this way and a path pushing here. So this way they bring all these forces here that if we destroy and they keep bringing in reinforcements, they're leaving the objective here. And so no, it is not meant to be a push somehow down around here and a push swinging around here to the rear pair. It's to draw forces, massive amounts of forces, to these other side areas, leaving the central bit open enough to be able to push there. So that's my strategy. It is a bit annoying trait of mine that I have to understand all deep mechanics of a game to really enjoy it. I love games, especially the divisional scale scenarios, not so much the core and army level ones. I get you, Mirror Man. And in the board game days before computers, I did learn 1 or 2 games somewhat imperfectly, one or two maybe well on my own. But most of the games, especially when I say a child, under 14 years of age, I needed someone and often whether playing HO or microscale, armor, World War II armor kind of battles, someone could explain and show me the rules, or whether it was like, a more board game with counters. Show me enough of the rules to get the basics down, and then I can look up details. But trying to, again, goes back to my math and not math. trying to normally get a 30-page rule book or greater. I'm not talking like a 5 or 10-page simple rule book, but a greater rule book to really get that understanding, because just too much. It just overwhelmed me. So if somebody could explain me, get me the basics of the game, then understanding the basic, then I could read around the rules, different parts of the rules, and get more and more of the nuances of the game. And although if I'm playing with somebody else that I'm either teaching, as a kid, it was hard to find friends that wanted to play war games. Not that I didn't have friends, but that wanted to learn the war game and not just, run around and do things before computers and whatnot. So yeah, it's the learning process was a bit difficult for me if I didn't have somebody showing me. Now nowadays I've got enough of a basic understanding of the concept, and then the actual physical limitations of the computer to only let you do what's legit within the rules goes a long ways. And yeah, like all nuances readily admit, like, okay, we got a 6 rated commander here. I didn't know this. French Rupert can take over. So things like that I can learn. And so yeah, like T2 is saying, learn as we go along. Okay, so we could hit that pretty hard. Now we've used up a lot of shells here, but what we'll do is we'll fire 1. There we go. Okay, well, that's leaving me with a little bit of a dilemma here. I was thinking about, well, we're not going to hit there this turn. I don't, well, I do want to take him out. He's attacked, he hasn't, but he'll get to survive this turn. Learn English by reading all those Avalon Hill rules and stuff. Oh boy, not how I would want to learn anything, even the Avalon Hill rules. Could spend a week reading the rules, I bet. That's dedication. Beam Slam is winning the dedication award this week. Okay. Okay, 6 shells. Why is there a French unit up here? I don't like that there's a French unit up here. French units are supposed to be somewhere else. These out and take it. Yeah, you're in that case. So now we've taken out 3 units here. We've made their front line cry a bit. Got 6. Shells. Let's fire 4 up here. Okay. Why not going to let me occupy with the tank? Again, that whole issue here. Now, we've got this. Let's bombard that. They got aircraft there. Fine. want to see if there's anything here. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to know that he was there before I did this. So I would have gotten ambushed. So now we're rotating the defenses around. Yeah, I think this is the one, because there's a swamp moving up here and I got armor and other things protecting me here. I think this is going to be my best of the three choices. There we go. So we pushed into here. I know he's surrounded a bit, but we can see here that, yeah, they got stuff, but it's not that bad, and it's going to make them more worried than I'm worried. Now, down here, oh, this French unit is ready to be taken out. I think he was SR'd in last turn, strategically redeployed, and that generally means they're not ready for combat. In this game, I don't want to SR in units immediately next to enemy forces. Okay, now they have pulled back. So they had been up along this line here, so they pulled back a bit. So that'll allow us to bring up here the artillery. Again, this is our apparent thrust for. I read the menu too, but I had to go for a minute. Yep, I think you mean manual, but yes. Okay, that killed off a unit. What we're doing now is reinforcing. Wrenching. They need really want artillery here, but we don't have it. So I'm going to try a more World War I style assaults. Oh, he was just a detachment. I shouldn't have done that with a detachment. Okay. Well, live and learn. Bad generalship right there. Now, we are poised to take this city here. So, recon bomb it. Ground strike it here. Railway gun hit it. 7 and 4. So we'll start with the 7. You can see over here, and that's at 52 readiness, 19% morale. It was them. These guys can move in and entrench. So we've moved up, we've entrenched. Them up for next turn. Now over here. I don't know why they moved this guy up in here. Did I move around him? I forget, but it just leaves me 2 units over here. You're going to come up and entrench. Okay, all the way to 10. That's good. Down here. Well, we really don't have many shells, so I think we're going to reinforce some. I believe supply is flowing easier down here now. I think it's a combination of the city getting repaired and or the general moving up closer to the front here. Okay, these guys are particularly weak for all right, taken off the board. You come up to there. Attacking there at the moment. All right. So we have pushed in. I don't know. Well, again, we can judge, and I am partially judging by how much ground we've taken. Territory does matter. I don't know how much strategic asset territory. Sure, there's probably a lot of good farmland and other things in here, but industrial centers that we're either, denying to the enemy and or getting control of to ourselves, or, even just better positions and surrounding the enemy. It's all important. And talking about like industry, World War I is very much a war of attrition, so it's very much a war of industrial capacity. Somewhere up here, in this sort of general region, there was, I believe, one of the main forget if it was rifles or machine gun factories. I think it was rifle factory that, because and this was after stopping the initial German advance, it was up near the front lines, and they thought, well, hey, the Germans might push their way into it, so they mostly picked that factory up and relocated it, somewhere down south in France, well away from the front, and took most of the workers away for it. Now, the line didn't collapse and things were sort of okay in the area. So that the building and sort of what was left became a repair shop for rifles. Because, rifles would come back in all states of damage and they would strip them down. And you can imagine, and I didn't even think about this until I see an arsenal is a really good. I'll talk rifle in a moment. Is a really good channel dealing with initially World War I stuff, but they branched now out into other small arms, but older small arms mostly. But one of the things they talked about, is refurbishing. So if a rifle has been near an explosion, shall we say, of some sort, and there's obviously with all this artillery and grenades and mortars, all kinds of explosions going on, rifles, and whether the guy is wounded or not, or dead or whatever, the rifles will pick up small razor-sharp metal fragments into its wood. So even if the gun itself, the metal parts of the gun of a bolt-action rifle are working fine, you're going to have little shivers of shards of metal into your wooden stock embedded in there. And they're not just all going to be easy to pull out, and some might even not be noticed at first because they sort of go in deep enough that little bit of wear on the wood, and then you'll start cutting yourself. So these rifles were being taken back, off the front line, and just maybe a new wooden stock put on them, and send, not necessarily send it back to the same unit, but just send it back into the, rifle replacement depot somewhere. So the factory changes from a manufacturing factory to a repair factory, mostly, I believe, simply by whether from combining elements from two damaged guns or new components with damaged guns, not so much manufacturing, new barrels or triggers or stocks or any of that stuff, but they just use the facility and some of the expertise to disassemble and reassemble, now properly functional versions of the weapons. So, there's a lot of that is, going on. And so if you're either denying a facility to the enemy or actually getting it over to you, or denying a resource like a mine of some sort, position does matter. You're and not just flanking positions and creating big pockets. Those of course do as well, but you've got a taking territory does matter. But really, like I say, it's attrition of the enemy. It's making the enemy bleed more than it does you. Okay, rifles, bolt action. I don't know. I don't like the term Mary. The Mauser, and I'm talking like you mentioned the 98, Mauser 98, and similar Mausers, and guns similar to that. One of the really great benefits of that is that great big extractor on it. And if you look at the Mauser bolt, and someday I will be entering the gun tuber space a bit, make some videos. And that has that big spring on that extractor, and that just rips that cartridge out of the gun. And so, if things are working fine, it does it very cleanly and effectively. And it just has a lot of force. And if there's something been wrong with the cartridge or whatever, it's expanded when it fired, or stuck in the chamber, it's much more likely to grab hold on it and pull it off because it has that great big spring as part of it. So that's very good. So mechanically, the Mauser's really good. But the Enfield, and look, everybody's copying the Mauser because you're making the Mauser. Mauser's made under license in Belgium. The U.S., after encountering the Mauser primarily in Spain in combat, we decided to make the 03 Springfield, which is such a copy that we eventually pay royalties for a while until World War I breaks out. Then we stop paying royalties to the Germans for our making copy. But even the British want a copy of the Mauser, so they commission, and they're all tied up making the Enfield. So they commission some U.S. factories to make the P-14, which is a British iteration on the Mauser. So America ends up using two types of Mausers, the 1903 Springfield and the P-17. The only real change between a P-14 that the British had to commission, and we just simply, because we needed guns too very fast, we took over there, and they just simply changed it from 303 British to a 30-06, the American cartridge. That's the only significant change between the P-14 and the P-17, just that sort of year dates. So, and that's, so we have the British iteration of the Mauser and the American iteration of the Mauser. But the Enfield has a nice semi-pistol grip stock. The Enfield has rather nice wood covering over much of the gun for bayonet fighting and just carrying and handling a rifle. The Enfield has 10 rounds instead of 5. The Enfield has a shorter stroke on the bolt, and particularly I think it was the Australians mainly that could operate the bolt with using their right hand with their thumb and index finger. They're right there. Operate with just the two fingers, and then operate the trigger with, and I think this did get to other British units, but the Australians, I believe, started this. Operate the trigger with their pinky. So they could very fast. They even had like the sort of the mad minute in which everybody would just dump their 10 rounds out firing in the direction of the enemy. But they could very fast, bit faster than and keep on target as well. Looking down the sights and picking out individual targets and not just generally firing in the direction of a group of enemy. But they could faster, better, stay on target and put rounds onto the enemy. Now, accuracy, that comes out to the more the individual gun, how much the rounds have been shot, how well it was made, how well it's sighted in. Because even if you have a very, very accurate barrel, if you haven't taken the time to sight in the sights on it, and then ammunition, particularly in World War I, it gets better in World War II, but it's not nearly as good as modern ammunition for consistency, everything being the same. Because if you're running bullets that are inconsistent, well, yeah, it mostly doesn't matter that much the fine-tuning of your sights, because the bullets all over the place, even if you got it good. And so it's not doing so. Ammunition quality is not so great in World War I, and sure there's better and worse factories and whatnot. But so in a lot of ergonomic ways, human operating ways, the Enfield's better. But the Enfield is a clue. They finally sort of halfway through World War II sort of streamline out the Enfield. I don't keep track of the mark this, model that, whatever, Mark III, number 2, or whatever, however I don't keep track of all that. I have to look that up for the Enfield. But partway through World War II, they come out with a much more streamlined, both help in manufacturing as well as getting rid of vestigial components that are no longer used on the gun. And then late in the war comes out with what is called by collectors the jungle carbine, mostly because it continues to be used in places like Malaya after the war. but it's sort of a lightweight carbine version of it. It was used on the continent in World War II, just at the end, like late 44 or 45. And so it's a really lightweight version of it. So yeah, a lot of the human operation elements of the Enfield. You got other things. The Carcano, and probably even worse though. Whatnot is you got things like the Most and the Gaunt, and the Japanese Arisaka, or what we call the Arisaka, when it was made nice early on. I mean, they just got cruder and cruder as the war goes on, but it's a good gun. But nothing really comes up to either the Enfield or the Mauser. So those are the two. Those are my top two, and I have about as they're it would be hard to choose between them. The only simple thing I could say, of course, is make a Mauser that has an extent. They did make they did have some trench Mausers that had lots of big magazine on them to shoot for a while from a fixed position, but they made it heavier. And I think that's like 20 rounds, or is it 30, and whatnot. So they did do some high capacity. But if they had made it sort of like the British Enfield, a standard 10-round magazine, that would probably push me to the Mauser. But again, like the shorter stroke on the bolt would still sort of push the Enfield up. But so as a firing mechanism, yes, the Mauser. As a sort of a human interaction, again, higher capacity magazine, probably the Enfield. So they're very, very close in my mind between the two of them. Okay, but they get quickly out of print. What are we talking about here? Oh yes. Okay. Read the general and tactic. Oh yes. At least the stores that I had locally here, the general and strategy and tactics and strategy, or strategy and tactics, whatever the name of the magazine was, came with a war game, and so it was expensive when I was a kid. And I wasn't going to be playing all these different war games again because I had sort of trouble learning them. Two, I didn't have consistent, opponents who wanted to play them. Because I go back to elementary school and wanting to play war games, and even through high school. Now, I did have a few friends that would want to learn and play, but the war games include in high school and whatnot, but not a lot, and not that were consistently available enough. So just playing against yourself kind of thing. Yeah. So I didn't do as much as that as I wanted to. And so the magazine was expensive. I did not know, and I know that they did sort of publish or put out, at least here in America, in some localities, just the magazine, not the attached war game that often went with the theme of the magazine. I think it was the General that I bought that came out for Avalon Hill's The Third Reich game, that added a lot to the game with several different mods, if you will, and whatnot. I have that somewhere in storage, that copy. But yeah, I didn't get as many of those as I probably would have liked to, just to read the magazines. You could tell a lot of work went into some of those manuals. Yes, I saw that on the Slithering Matrix website that they sell printed manuals for some of the games. To be honest, I'm very tempted to buy. Yeah, and as Beam Slam says, those things go out of print pretty quickly. I will say this about particularly Matrix games, but also Slitherine. They can be sort of expensive. I will say now, and I say on their channel, I am not trying to sell you their games. I am trying to present the games to you, and then you can determine whether you want to put the time and effort into the game, and is it worth it? Because if you play a game enough, it's probably worth whatever the price is. I mean, if it's enough hours of entertainment, even if you're a high school student and you're So I figure that's probably the youngest age that you're really getting into Matrix games. Um, even if you got to save up money for them and you're putting in a lot of hours in it, it's probably worth the money. The reason that they are expensive, I do believe, is honestly they're fairly small sales relative to other games. So if you don't sell that many, I mean, you sell thousands or tens of thousands, but you don't sell hundreds of thousands or millions, the individual games got to cost more. And so they're a bit pricey, and I understand that. Now, I don't have to worry about it because basically, everything they publish, they give me, even if I'm not specifically streaming for it. And I had to recently ask for a few DLCs for combat mission just because they gave me the base game, and I was presenting some of the combat missions a bit more, and I asked for. They happily gave me the DLCs. Not that they wouldn't more if I asked for anything, but they know if I'm actively playing it either on my channel and particularly on their channel. Obviously, they give it to me for free. But it's the at least base game basically give me everything, if not everything else. So I don't have to worry about the cost of it, but I understand people do. Trust me, because other games I have to buy. So it's not like I get everything free, but all these I do. Even if I'm not going to play them much. But the cost of publishing or printing up books becomes even more costly. So they don't want to, and also warehousing books. Digital copies of things are cheap to warehouse. But if you have to warehouse books or manuals or other sort of hard copy stuff, you've got to either, in essence, sort of rent space in fulfillment centers, if you're warehousing a lot of it, or you've got to warehouse it somewhere. And if you're not selling through it, so most of those hard copies burn out pretty quick when the game is initially launched, and there just isn't enough demand to keep it in stock. So like Beamslam's saying, you get it quickly. And if there's enough orders coming fast enough for it, early on in the game cycle, they very well may be willing to take. And Slytherin Matrix has been a very upstanding, upfront company in their customer relationship so far as I've been able to tell. Is either, customers talking about them and that, or my, in dealings and whatnot, and seeing them. So they might very well be willing to take a back order of a manual if they know they're going to be doing another print run of it, and then just letting that sit for a month or so to see how many back orders they get, and then take that into account and print up a few extra maybe. But yeah, so you might have to wait for some of that stuff, but they're going to follow through or give you your money back if something can't, if there just isn't enough to, coming through on things. So yeah, they're good about it. Okay, Carnate also very cute, a big contributing factor. Well, let me just come over here. I keep missing up the name of it. What is it? G11. No. Well, is that it? Yeah. The Mauser is pretty cute. There's some really cute carbine, cavalry carbine Mausers. But look up a Mauser G3340, G33/40 as being a rather cute Mauser. one of the better designed made Mausers. I did hurry OP and order the printed manual for just to have the physical rule book in hand. Exactly. Germany's #2 sniper Sepp Albrecht said the Mosin was better because it had better barrel velocity over the Kar 98K. Okay, that's a different factor because you can have because if you're talking about specifically the Carabiner 98 Kurt, which is basically everything's spelled out of your Kar 98K. Yeah, that's a specific, very specific rifle with a very specific ammunition. Now, he is probably talking about, and I don't know Alberger or Sepp Alberger really well or at all. I don't recognize the name. But he's probably talking about a high quality version that has a scope on it, not your average, cranked out version given to your average foot soldier with iron sights on it. Okay. But the crudeness of the manufacturer, the stickiness of the way the bolt moves compared to the Mausers, the various quality of production. Yeah. And I don't know the velocity difference between 7.92 Mauser versus 7.62 by 54R. Enough to know that. Mostly solo, okay. Later met others of the same interest, yes. You still get the magazine, very good. I already own those games, just like watching streams. Well, very good. I had T2. I randomly found Strategic Command games that I found Yogg streaming. Oh, I miss Yogg. Yogg was such a nice guy. Streaming it on Slytherin. I didn't even know Slytherin Matrix was a thing. The price of their games is steep, but if you compare it to games from famous studios where they pay $80, yeah, never again. Slytherin prices is quite justified. I have hundreds of hours of Strategic Command already, and you can always play it from. Yeah, I like all the Strategic Commands. I really like. I love this. I mean, whether it's this, I love when they've done the divisional scale stuff for Strategic Command. Whether it's this Ludendorff, or could be the Schlieffen one. I really like this the best. I love this the best of their stuff. I generally like I think the game engine works best for World War I. Second best for some of the American Civil War stuff, though it's hard to have because battles like Gettysburg and Antietam were really multiple corps coming together in one sort of spot. It doesn't do that quite so well. But when they do some scenarios that are a bit more lower scale, I like that better there. And then the Strategic Command World War II, War in Europe, or World at War, those are very good as well, but not my faves of the genre here. Like I say, World War I is for it. But definitely, now I know of Matrix going back to Steel Panthers, which was originally a SSI title that after SSI basically dies, Matrix as a sort of a mod and released initially for free updated versions of Steel Panthers. And I'm waiting for Steel Tigers. They announced it. They probably shouldn't have until they got closer to it, but I'm waiting for Steel Tigers, which is supposed to be a modern iteration on Steel Panthers. And so I know the name going way back then. And Matrix was an American company until Slytherin. Slytherin is very much an English company that has an Italian office that runs its publicity. And it does have, through Matrix, it does have a bit of an office in the U.S., but mostly they are a publisher. there are a few games, like I say, that coming out of Matrix that I know specifically that are, coming, that they're also developing. Mostly, though, they develop with small developer studios. Some, like, I forget the name of the studio that Combat Mission, they've recently acquired that as an ownership. I don't know if full or part owner, majority ownership stake. So they do own or have stakes in development studios, but I also do know some development studios they do not own. They just contract either generally to publish their games or specific games from this development studio that they help support on the development. So yeah, it's sort of an interesting relationship, but at the core, it's in modern day, it's an English company. Although I mostly deal with Italians. Okay, I would agree. It seems to work better on more zoomed in scale. Even you enjoy a big map. Yes, my first Matrix, Panzer Corps 1. Yes. Now again, there I go back to the old Panzer General that was the predecessor to Panzer Corps, if you will. But yes, Panzer Corps 1, great game. Love that. Been playing the hell out of Panzer Corps 2. There's a mod for CS where the world map is the same scale as the European map at divisional scale. Yeah, and I do know there's a bunch of mods. I just, time and space and whatnot, haven't gotten really into them. I played one or two, at least partially, but so far it's mostly been the DLCs. And yeah, it's how much complication do you want in your life? I find, you can automate a fair amount of stuff, but I find, it's fairly complicated and fairly involved to play War in the East 2 or 1. And they're very deep dives. But I recently, as in the last couple of weeks now, reloaded in Axis and Allies Online 1942, or however the title goes. And casually, meaning not with a lot of, planning or deep thought, though I go back to the old board game days of the original Axis and Allies. Now that kind of game I could get friends to play, because it was a casual enough war game, quote unquote, that just casual friends could understand and play and get the rules. And they like, because I have many guy friends that World War II, war, guns, all that kind of stuff. That was cool, but actually digging into a proper war game was just beyond, not maybe what they would like to do, but just beyond their willingness to learn all the rules and play it and take the time to do so. But a casual thing like Axis and Allies, so I can appreciate a game for what it's meant to be. So like I say, I was just loaded in and played some Axis and Allies, and I had some setbacks, but I won the game. So you can play that kind of thing. And then you get into, which I really love, the Black Ice, or at least older Black Ice versions. I got to look at the current one, of like Hearts of Iron 3, Black Ice. So those also really deeply dive into it. Hearts of Iron 4, it's sort of a love-hate relationship with it. Love some of the things that they've developed in it. Hate that some of the good elements of Hearts of Iron 3 were left out. So it's a, like I say, a love-hate. I can love it, and then I can hate it literally in the next minute, back and forth. Okay, yeah, okay, good. Thanks for public. Do I need to approve that? Or let me look here. Make sure that Beam Slams putting that in there. Does that need approval? Sometimes they want over on Twitch. Let's pull up my Twitch. Should have checked this through. There. Is it needed? No, it went through. Okay, good. It went through. Yeah. Yeah, the forums was what I was just going to short say. The forums is where you will find things like mods. And definitely. So yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of mods there. So again, I had the counters that I'm using here originally started as what was known as the Blue Max mod. I like these counters. I like that they still have the NATO symbols up in the corner. At least for most, obviously they don't here in the tank. But I can quickly see by the dots, is it 2 dots for division or 1 dot for detachment at this for this game. And so I like these counters. They work well, but they're a mod. And then I think it's a different. I think I just have the counters enabled, or do is also the background. I'm not sure. But there's some look and feel that have become a DLC that's free. That comes with the game. You just have to go in and enable it. If you're seeing looks different than what I'm playing, though I'm not playing any mods right now that change the game. Just the look and feel here. So yeah, definitely look around. And again, Slytherin and Matrix are very mod friendly. If the game is is practical to mod it, they're happy that people do it. They're not trying to restrict that. I don't know if there's maybe sensitive material, as you can guess, about World War II that they might have a problem with, but I don't specifically know of it. If anybody's done anything that they would object to, but like I say, they could. But for something like this, it would be pretty good. Okay, gentlemen. Well, I think we're getting near the end here. I want to thank Beamslam, T2, Ostjan, don't want to forget anybody. Let me scroll up. Leshy, Miraman, yes, you're not forgotten. Ari, if you're still around. Yeah, I think that's most everybody. Oh, Jemnuska, if you're still here. Thank you. Oh, Admiral Teague, I think you probably left, but thank you for showing up. I will be back tomorrow for War Thunder Day. You guys are welcome to join me, not just to watch the stream and listen to me pontificate on things, but you can actually play with us. We will definitely make room for a mission or two. And War Thunder is sort of the multiplayer day and mostly free-to-play games, though sometimes we've done Hearts of Iron 4, and we may do some sometimes we may do some of the where you crew the tank with multiple people. That is a paid game, but definitely War Thunder is free to play, and we'll even go down to the starting BRs if you cool, you like that. Oh yes, no, you hung around. Cool, thanks, Admiral T. So if you again, everybody check out Admiral Teague's channel. Links are in the chat. That you can just download it. It's free, and we'll play at least a mission or two with you just to get you started if it's something you feel like you want to do. But otherwise, you can just hang out with us. So thanks, everyone. I will see you.